You have arrived at Laughbox, the podcast for the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor. We are so excited you're here.
Welcome to a special edition of Laughbox. It's International Humor Month, and our special guest today is Steve Wilson.
Yay!
Hey, woo! I'm Jim Bob Williams.
And I'm Katie B.
Steve, tell us, how did Humor Month get started?
Oh, first of all, let me say how wonderful it is to still be here and be talking about it. That's just great in itself. And how Humor Month got started, just a couple of things about it. It was started by a man who was an entertainer and a comedian, Larry Wilde. Wilde with an E, W-I-L-D-E. And Larry, I'll tell you some of my remembrances. He and I became good friends over the years. Larry died a few years ago at about 95.
Nice.
And he was living in Carmel, California. He had been living there for a long time and had begun a writing and speaking business called the Carmel Humor Institute. And he had a tendency to make himself the director of the things that he came up with. So if you get to it, if you find anything from that, probably says Larry Wilde, director, Carmel Institute of Humor.
I remember reading some of Larry's work in the 70s. When did he form the Carmel Institute?
The Carmel Institute, I'm not sure when he started at it, but it was certainly some years before Humor Month. He had, I believe he was drafted into the Army, probably sometime in the late 60s or 70s. But he had been an entertainer. He had been a comedian, a stand-up, and he was an opening act for a number of celebrities whose names would be familiar to older people now from their appearances in Las Vegas. And I remember a time when there was an ATH conference in Vegas. And Larry was regaling us. He was just telling us at breakfast and lunch anyway, he was just telling us stories of having been in Vegas and who he was the opening act for, Debbie Reynolds, people like that. And we walked through the casino with him. We were just walking around, and there was a huge poster-type plaque outside of one of the casinos, between the casino and the showroom. And it had a list of their stars who had appeared there. And the acts, and there's Larry Wilde's name. Larry is on this poster. And we had the evidence that all this, he was talking about having done this. And here we were in Vegas, and he was saying, that was me. And so he was the real deal. He started Humor Month we think, in 1976. And before that time, he was very interested in comedy. When he was in the Army, and I don't know the whole story, it's probably in his notes somewhere, but he got assigned to be in charge of entertainment for the troops, some of the troops, working with USO and just keep morale up and things like that. And he made himself into a kind of an entrepreneur of humor, an impresario of humor, and putting on shows. And I remember he telling me that he had acquired, this was earlier, before Humor Month, became popular, a portable reel-to-reel tape recorder that was made in Germany by a company called Wallensack. And this was in the 60s, I believe. I'm sure it was. And this was a new kind of invention, that there was a tape recorder and it was big and heavy. It was 15 by 15 inches square. It would look like a little suitcase, but it was heavy, and it was reel-to-reel audio tape, and you could record on it. You could carry it places. You had to plug it in. It wasn't on batteries. You need electricity. And he thought that he might use that to interview comedians so that he could learn more about comedy and how do you make comedy. And how can a person be funny? He wanted that for himself, but he was a very smart guy and a big-hearted guy and a sweetheart and a generous man. Do you think I liked him a lot? Yes. He was a very likable guy. I may get it out of order, but one of the first people that he had a chance to interview was like Jack Benny, if you remember the name Jack Benny, radio
Yeah.
and later TV and movie comedy, vaudeville, back in the day. That's what we talk about. That's what I mean when I say back in the day. And he had a chance to interview Jack Benny, and he took his tape recorder to a hotel, and they had an interview. And they got along very well, he said. He had a lot of questions. What's funny? How do you make something funny? And at the end of their time together, they had created a little bit of a friendship. Jack Benny said to him, I know you want to interview comedians. Who else would you like to interview? Maybe I can help you get interviews.
Wow.
And you could learn more about comedy.
So he's really a major historian of comedy, American humor of the 20th century.
Yes. So I know he interviewed Johnny Carson. I don't know all the names, but those interviews were eventually transposed over to CDs. And I think the company was called Laugh. And you can find them. They're still available in various places, those interviews that he did. And each person would say to him, this is great. Who else would you like to interview? And they opened doors for him. And he got to talk to and interview a lot of people. And those interviews are historic, and they're still available. They're not easy to find, but they're now becoming rare recordings. Yeah. So he was doing that. He was trying to be a comedian. Then he started to collect jokes. And he ended up putting together a book. When you're up to your eyeballs in alligators, you got to remember that your job was to drain the swamp, something like that.
Yeah.
A collection of jokes, which turned out over time to be, he said, and I have no reason to doubt him, at the time, the largest, the best-selling work of jokes, collected, printed jokes. Although jokes have been collected for literally thousands of years.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about that, but one of the early collections of jokes is called Philogelos, which is Latin for love of laughter.
Yeah.
Philo meaning love and gelos meaning laughter. And there is an ancient set of jokes. I'll tell you one of them I remember, an early joke, and we're talking about 1,000 years maybe ago. A man goes to a barber shop for a haircut, and the barber says, how would you like your haircut? And the customer says, in silence. And that's a joke, a 1,000-year-old joke. So he and I had these similar kind of interests, fascination with comedy and humor and how do you make it. But at that time, certainly in the States and for probably hundreds of years, laughter has had a very mixed reputation. Humor, comedy has had a very mixed reputation. Is it a good thing? Is it not? Is it valuable? Is it a waste of time? Is it just for kids? Is it immature? Does it show that you are not a very smart person and is clowning and that kind of stuff? It didn't have a very good reputation. And a lot of humor was used to insult people, jokes, and hurt people's feelings and make fun of things that we now think more carefully about, especially in places like ATH. If you're going to use humor or have it in your life as something helpful, we have to look at the positive dimensions and aspects of it. So humor did not have a terrific reputation. And then let me insert here in terms of just history in general. In the mid-1960s, the National Institute of Health put out a request for proposals. Would somebody be willing to accept a small grant from the Institute for National Institute of Health, from their mental health division, would somebody study these two questions? Is laughter worthwhile studying for human health, to understand how we can be healthier? Mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And is there any possibility that computers might be useful in analyzing the information? Computers were a brand new thing.
Yeah, this is 1960s. We're talking
in the 60s.
IBM and punch cards.
And the grant was given to a psychiatrist at Stanford University. His name was William Fry Jr. Got the contract to do the research. And in 1964, he sent the National Institute of Health a final report. And Bill Fry and I became friends over the years. I'm very fortunate that the people that I happened to run into on this journey. And he had done the research. He had looked at her in a way that, for the possibility of scientific investigation that might show that it has value for our health, happiness, and successful functioning in life. And he sent a final report, which was just a couple of pages. I have that report. I'll be turning these documents over to ATH as part of our transition of Humor Month. And he said that two things are very clear. One is laughter is definitely worth scientific investigation, and that would mean money would be put into funding of studies. And it looked to him like a pretty good bet that computers will be helpful at some point. And he sent that report in, and it was very strong. As I read that the first time, I thought he planted the flag for therapeutic humor and laughter. And he coined a term, geolotology. And that one of the people that he had working with him was a woman who called herself a sociolinguist. And she said the term for a person who studies laughter in this field would be geolotologist. And so Bill Fry called himself the first geolotologist. He adopted the name. And Gelo, gelo, is coming from Latin and Greek, meaning laughter. And he told me, he said, be sure you tell everybody that it's geolotology, not gelotology. It's the science of laughter, not the science of dessert. So geolotology was named, and officially, as far as I could tell, in 1964. And I said to Bill at one time, we were having a conversation, you made such a strong recommendation for studying laughter and humor when it was thought to maybe only be something that should be in vaudeville and burlesque, and it was strictly entertainment, and nothing happened. They didn't take your advice. And he said it was because of Vietnam.
Wow.
Vietnam broke out. We went to war. All funding was headed towards defense spending, and studies like what makes a joke funny and how it could help your health, that went out the window. Nobody paid attention to that.
Wow.
Nobody had resources for that anymore. And that sat on the back burner for years and years. Somehow then along came Larry Wilde. And he's saying, this is good stuff. Then you got a little bit of publication going on. Bill Fry. Then at Loma Linda University in California, there's a fella named Lee Burke. And Dr. Burke ends up also having a strong interest in humor and laughter and being a very solid scientist. And he began to pick up on the idea that laughter and humor could be studied. So there's a vortex. There's things coming together. These paths are about to cross. Bill Fry and Lee Burke. And then there's this guy named Norman Cousins. And Norman Cousins is a editor of the Saturday Review of Literature.
Yes.
He's a writer. He's a literary guy, but he's got a tremendous interest in humor and laughter. He loves funny stuff. He loves funny writing. And he gets sick. He's supposed to die from his disease. It's called ankylosing spondylitis. And it was very painful, and he was very depressed. And somebody suggested to him, he knew Timothy Leary, who was doing the LSD experiment. He knew Linus Pauling, who was doing vitamin C experimenting and recommending these things to Norman Cousins. And Cousins, when he would have a bad night and he couldn't sleep or he was depressed over the fatal prediction and prognosis of his disease, his friends said, try to cheer yourself up. And he would have funny books brought in, and the nurses would read to him the things that he thought were humorous. And he thought that he didn't have as much pain. And somehow his disease did something that was unheard of at the time. It went into remission and never recurred. It was unheard of. And he thought that the humor and the laughter had something to do with it. The doctors in the hospital were sending him to support groups to psychological group therapy, and he said the therapy groups in the hospital were depressing. People were angry, they were quiet, and nothing funny was going on. He thought it was the worst thing they could do. So he made his own little system to cheer himself up, and he got better. And he thought something is going on here. So Norman Cousins was in a position of influence through his affiliation with literary people and organizations, and he was able to raise a significant amount of money to start some real scientific research, and connected with Lee Burke and Bill Fry and said, I've got this money. You've got this knowledge of how to do the research. Can we get something going? And he writes a book. Norman Cousins writes a book called Anatomy of an Illness, as seen through the eyes of the patient. He thinks he's writing it initially for the medical community, and it turns out to cross over to general interest and becomes hugely popular. And so he's got some money coming in. The book is selling well. And he's got two scientists now, Bill Fry and Lee Burke, working together to study laughter and humor, to begin to have little bits of information coming out in scientific journals. Not a lot. Back in that time, it was not easy to find an article or a report on this topic. Maybe one or two or three a year were coming out. Now we have one or two or three a minute. I think as I look at the internet, people writing thought pieces and editorials and doing science and doing research. But it started with Norman Cousins hiring Bill Fry and Lee Burke. And Larry Wilde is out there trying to learn about comedy, and he is fascinated with the science of it coming out. And he says, he decided to organize a way to celebrate what we were learning about the power of humor and laughter.
Did you get a chance to meet Norman Cousins, Larry Wilde, Edith Traeger, who was actually with Dr. Fry and created the gelotology with Fry? They did that together, so they were partners somehow, and I'm still looking that up. But did you get to meet everybody involved in all this?
I met some. I met Fry. Bill Fry and I became pals. We had a lot of laughing conversations over the years. And after I started World Laughter Tour in 1998, I had come back from India. There's this guy in India who has a thing called laughter clubs, and he's a physician. And he's got people meeting in public parks and on the beaches and different places around Mumbai, and he's got them laughing. And he calls it a laughing club. And an article was in I think, New York Times had a short article, Laughter is India's Best Medicine. I did not meet Edith Traeger, but according to the document that I have, she was hired kind of part-time or something to work with Bill Fry on his project. Should we study laughter? Is it worth investing in scientific studies? I did not meet her, and I never got to meet Norman Cousins. But I recommend everybody, a lot of his talks and interviews are available on YouTube, and it's worth listening to. He was a great humanitarian, and his values and ethics are so consistent with mine, and I think with those of us who are trying to be helpful in making a better world, he's very much worth listening to. All of this is getting started. I'm joining ATH, finding out about ATH, and there was a movement here in the States, the Human Potential Movement, I think it was called. And people that were heading it up were Joel Goodman, who had started something in Saratoga Springs, New York, called the Humor Project. And Matt Weinstein and Joel Goodman and a couple of other people wrote a book called Playfair. And it was a recipe book of non-competitive activities, games for people that would help build teams, help people build self-esteem. And that book came out in 1980. It's the last time I saw it on Amazon is available for a penny. It's one of the best books I think most of us in this field will ever have in our libraries. It was visionary. And you can follow the recipes and use it for many years. Use those activities. Playfair. So all of this is coming about the vortex. Out on the West Coast, you got a guy who does clowning known under the name of Wavy Gravy. So Wavy Gravy is out there, and he's doing this thing saying, hey, laughter and humor looks like it's good for us. We're starting to get some information in from laboratory studies. And I was so excited to get hold of some of that information and begin to share that with people. I'm a big believer in get the evidence. What's the evidence? And what's the probability that we're onto something here? So I got involved with sharing that information. I was so excited about it. But when I came back from India that year, that was 1998, we were there in April. And I think maybe in June that year, there was an NTH conference.
Mm.
And I went to that conference, and Karen Buxman was the program director or chairman for the conference. And I told her I've been to India and I've seen something. It's about laughter. ATH in those days was an acronym for the American Association of Therapeutic Humor. And we're not talking about laughter. They were separating laughter and humor, and they were talking about humor. It was about humor, and they were giving awards to people like Jerry Lewis, and it was about therapeutic humor. And I went to India, and they're talking about laughter. It was something different was going on. What I saw going on in India was very much along the lines of something I was getting into academically because I was a teacher of mental health technologies at a community college here in Columbus, Ohio. And it was what was going on in India. It looked like what we were calling activity therapy here in the States. Activity therapy, music therapy, these alternative approaches, these non-talking mental health treatments or opportunities were developing, were getting started. And I said, I think this is consistent. There's something here that's going to match up, that's making sense. And you got Lee Burke is he's finding out some things, doing some studies with college students. He had one of his early studies would have students watch either a funny movie clip or something dramatic and tense, a movie clip for 15 or 20 minutes. They were getting a little bit of blood out of each of the experimental subjects every minute and analyzing the blood contents, and found a significant difference in the blood contents of people who were quote unquote in humor and those who were not. And it was remarkable. And me and my colleagues at ATH, we're shouting from the rooftops, this is great, this is great. We got nurses. ATH started with nurses, NFL it was called. The original organization was Nurses for Laughter.
Yeah.
And so the medical community was interested, some were interested and involved in this early on. And when I came back from India, I went to the ATH conference and I said to Karen, can we demonstrate, is there any time on the schedule when maybe I could show people what I saw going on in India? They do things called laughter exercises. We had never heard of that. They're doing something there on a regular, it seems to be very popular. I think it's similar to what we do as activity therapy and therapeutic recreation. And there's something here. And she said, yeah, let's do it. And I don't know how she did it. She found time and we showed everybody at the conference. I was able to demonstrate and talk about my trip to India. And here's some things about laughter and activities you can do that induce people to laughter. And now we're getting some scientific support that why the mechanisms that get us laughing this way could be good for our health. What's going on in our nervous system, in our vascular system, in our muscular system.
What year was this? That year?
98.
98. Okay.
I had said to Pam and I had been in India almost 20 days. And we said to Dr. Kataria, you got to come to the United States. He had never been out of India. He was a general practitioner, and he had been reading the same studies we'd been reading. And he thought, well, this sounds like a good idea. And in India, it's a very natural thing to tie something to the activities of yoga. Yoga is so steeped in their culture, so important in so many ways. So he decided to call it laughter yoga. And he had people in public parks, and he didn't want to be about telling jokes because people are not very good at telling jokes. I don't think he was very good at telling jokes, but boy, we could do some funny things and we could fool around and we can get people laughing, and maybe that's going to be good for them.
So laughter yoga in America is only about 26 years old here.
Right. When we were there, we said, we got to get you, we're going to bring you to the United States. We're going to figure this out. And we got to show people what's going on because this has not been seen anywhere. The emphasis in the Western world in this topic at that time was humor, comedy, clowning. And the emphasis was not on the physical act of laughing. And this really began to open up possibilities that we hadn't been looking at so much here in what I call the Western world. So East was going to meet West. And I said, we got to get you to the United States. And we announced at ATH that we were going to do this. We were going to bring this doctor from India, and we were going to demonstrate something called laughter yoga. And if you wanted to have a demonstration in your city, find me, find Steve Wilson, sign up. We're going to have a lecture tour. And it took a year, and we ended up with a lecture tour to 14 cities in the United States. People booked a tour in Louisville, in California, in Texas. We were just all over the place. And we charged $3,000 for a day or half a day or an evening event. We were going to split the money with Dr. Kataria because he needed to take some money back to get his projects going. And
that was back when $3,000 was worth something.
That's right. It's real money. And so at that conference, I had the idea to get organized here in the state. We were, by the way, we had put together a website. It was the third year of the internet. Somebody told me that was the third year of the internet, 97, 98, 99, somewhere in there. And I remember a lunch break from the conference riding around in a car with Karen Buxman, Jackie Kwan. I'm not sure if Patty Wooten was with us or not at that time. And we said, we're going to put together an organization to promote these ideas and pull them together. And we named it World Laughter Tour. And the World Laughter Tour was born like around 98, 99. Dr. Katari and his wife made it. We got him to the United States. And in 2000, I offered the first workshop training in therapeutic laughter. And that was the beginning of getting that way. Thousands of people eventually took that training. But somewhere around around 2000, we had our first training. And I get a phone call, and I answer the phone, Steve Wilson, World Laughter Tour, and the man on the other end says, "Hi, my name is Lee Burke. Do you happen to know who I am?" And I said, "Yes, I know who you are. I've been quoting your research, and wow, it's me." He says, "I want you to know I've been watching what you're doing," and because we were getting some publicity for it. There were some articles being written around the country. He said, I want you to know that you're doing the right thing, and I have this advice for you. Don't ever get discouraged. When you get into humor and laughter," he told me, "you're going to get a lot of pushback. You're going to get people saying, no, we don't know the mechanisms. You have scientists who will push back. You got medical people who will push back." And he said, "Don't give up. You're on the right track." And he said, "How can I help you?" And I said, "I want to put together an advisory committee. I need people to help me, give me advice, keep me on the right track, move this idea forward." And he said, "Put me on your committee." So he was the first member. Lee Burke was the first member of the scientific advisory committee for World Laughter Tour. And then Bill Fry followed quickly after that, and Patty Wooten, and a number of people were so kind, so good, so generous. At the same time, Larry Wilde is floating around out there in Carmel and Las Vegas, and he's writing books, and he's interested in humor and laughter. And we all found each other at TH one year, right around in there, around the 2000s. And
is that when Larry passed the torch of Humor Month to you?
No, that happened in 2008. That didn't happen until 2008. But we introduced him to ATH, and that kind of gave him a home, receptive people who got it, who understood. He reached a point where he said, and he had come up with things. I brought a couple of things. Maybe you might be interested in some of the things that he wrote. We will share these. This month might be a good month to do it. He wrote the 10 Commandments for Lighthearted Living. Way back when. He wrote a test for humor deficiency syndrome, and they're remarkable. Yeah. The things that he did. His first commandment of his 10 commandments was, "Thou shalt make up your mind that no matter what happens, you're going to be a happy person. And if you're not having fun, fake it." That was his first commandment.
So these are memes before there were memes.
Absolutely.
Do you have Do you have electronic copies of these
Yes,
that we
sure.
could share? That would,
Yes.
when we're done, send them on because I think now would be a good, this month in particular, as we're talking in April 2025, be a good month to put those up and,
Okay,
yeah.
absolutely. See what you want to do with them. The humor deficiency syndrome gives you test questions like, do you light up a whole room just by leaving it? And there's a scoring framework for this. Things like that. Do you have humor deficiency syndrome? You drag yourself to the closet and find that your basic black wardrobe looks too bright. You might have humor deficient. So he's doing this funny stuff, and he's
Yeah.
out now. He's out speaking and getting around. Now he's coming to ATH, and he's given a stage and an opportunity to expand these ideas. And around 2008, he said he felt like he was getting tired and too old to keep doing this, and he wanted to pass Humor Month on to somebody. I thought it
Yeah.
was genius to call it a month.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you got a day. It's donut day. It's popcorn day. There's a prune for breakfast day, but he said, we're going to make a month, humor month. And so that gave us a lot of time to get the word out, try to encourage people that laughter isn't just silly. And now we see that we're serious about humor. ATH uses that a lot. And in 2008, Larry wanted to find somebody to take over and do these things with Humor Month. And he ran a closed auction. Not sure how he did it. And a few of us were bidding on it. And he selected me to take over. So he was the first director. I was the second director. I've been the
And he
second
couldn't have
director.
picked a better successor,
Meaning
you.
thank you. Yeah,
Uh,
thanks. And now Drew Tarvin is the third director of Humor Month, and I see that what Pam and I decided to do, because we retired over the last couple of years, we've been retiring. I think we're pretty much done now. I think we're retired, and we're looking for somebody to keep advancing these ideas and give it a bigger footprint. And we decided to one of the best place for Humor Month was probably ATH itself, and let them be the sponsor of Humor Month and give Humor Month to the organization, and that they could figure out ways to modernize, advance, expand these ideas and keep supporting it and help everyone. There are so many people all over the world who want to help us laugh, who want to help us be in good humor. And we're disconnected. If anything, it's what I call a loose movement.
just wanted to say for the record here, this is the first time I haven't used that as a punchline. So keep going.
Okay, that's right. I got you. But this is just, we've been trying to, I think what we really have all wanted to do is support and encourage anyone who has these ideas and help bring it together and strengthen numbers. One of my favorite quotations is that the snowflake is God's most fragile creation, but look what they could do when they stick together.
Yeah.
And let's all stick together. And that was the start. That, if you any more questions or anything else you want to know about how things got started, Pam and I took it over. There wasn't a website. We created a website, and Pam and I started a separate organization, which is a nonprofit charity. And we raised money, and we sent people different places around the world, gave scholarships, helped people get to conferences, buy books, do studies. And that's how the World Laughter Tour got started. I'm just grinning. I love what I see happening. I feel very good that it's in good hands.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing the origins of Humor Month and therapeutic humor in general here.
Yeah.
I had not realized how some of the details in the threads. Yeah.
So in your laughter clubs, right, and your laughter tours, how did you instigate laughter?
I initially relied a lot on the activities that are described in the book called Playfair.
Okay.
And just remarkable games that people can play. And you have to give solid information. Here's the science. Now let's do something and enjoy it and imagine what's happening. And it's phenomenal, and helping people to understand, because I had been doing a lot of consulting and speaking, lots of kinds of organizations who wanted to build teamwork or improve productivity or Drew, I thank you. I admire your courage in taking on this challenge of helping the world lighten up and be happier and healthier. I know we're in good hands. I see that you're a teacher and a kindred spirit, and I'm so happy that I can relax now with this and look forward to any support I can give you. Have a great time with it. Be inventive, be creative, take us forward. And I see that we're now the International Humor Month. It's being renamed. I'm looking forward to the intergalactic version. Let me know how you're doing with that. Thank you, Drew. We're handing off this Humor Month to you, Drew, and we're going to do it with laughter from our hearts. We love you. Thank you very much, and everybody who's doing this with you. What a great opportunity, and we're going to giggle our way out of here.
That's right. Okay, this has been a special edition of Laughbox from our Michigan's the amazing Steve Wilson. Take care, everybody.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks a million, guys.
Laughbox is a production of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Visit us online at www.aath.org. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Music by Gary Rubio. For more information, www.garyrubiomusic.com.